State Police Lieutenant John Slenk, who supervised the cold case team that cracked the Janet Chandler murder case, talks about how scared the witnesses were to testify.
I'm convinced beyond a shadow of a doubt that had all of those players, we call them, those people been involved, that were involved, stayed in the local area, that case would have been solved much earlier. But there was a code of silence there that wasn't going to be broken by anybody, because obviously the men involved knew the potential consequences of their act. They knew that if anybody talked, they were going to prison. The ladies were, in fact, threatened by those individuals. Those were young girls at that time. We keep looking at them now in court and say, "Guy, why were you intimidated by these old guys?" But you got to think back. A couple of those guys were like early 40s or late 30s. Some of them were a little younger, but those witnesses were 21, 22 years old, and they were playing with pseudo cops. They thought that that was all fun and games. These guys were nothing to mess with, and they got way in over their head. And when that homicide ultimately occurred, those guards just flat told them, "You talk, you end up like Janet." Now, when you're at a party and you see a young girl get strangled, raped, and murdered, and somebody says, "You talk, you're going to end up like Janet," would you believe them? And you're 21 years old? You would. And they left with terror in their minds. And I'll tell you, we had to talk and talk and talk to get them back into court. Even at this age, this many years later, they would just shake and cry in the witness room, and we'd have to console and calm them just to get them into court, knowing they were going to take a whipping from 4 defense attorneys, not just one, but 4. And that's a difficult, difficult task to ask anybody.